And welcome to this week's sermon prep. This coming weekend is going to be the 18th Sunday in ordinary time. It's amazing how time flies, how the year has gone by. If you think about it, that other week we're already going to be in August. We are well throughout half the year. Uh, Many of us began with New Year's resolution. I wonder how well those are going, if we have kept up at all. Now, this coming Sunday is the 18th Sunday in ordinary time, you see. And our first reading is from the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, going up to chapter 2. Obviously, we're not going to be reading the whole of chapter 1. It's going to be some places from chapter 1 and some places from chapter 2. And our responsorial psalm is from Psalm 90. O Lord, you have been our refuge from generation to generation. Our second reading, we are still reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Colossians. That would be chapter 3, verse 1 to 5, and then verse 9 to 11. And finally, our gospel is going to be the gospel according to St. Luke, chapter 12, verses 13 to 21. So our first reading from the book of Ecclesiastes. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. From those words, you might think that the writer of this book is called Koheleth. You might think that he was a negative man, but when you look at it, when you look at what he's speaking about, maybe it's a thought that has crossed your mind or crossed my mind as well. It says that sometimes a man who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave all to be enjoyed by a man who did not toil for it. It seems as if he's saying that everything that we work for, everything that we try to achieve, everything that we do in this life is vanity of vanities. It just does not lead us far. It just does not take us anywhere. He says that for all his days, they are full of pain, and his work is nothing but a vexation. And that even in the night, his mind does not rest. He says this also is vanity. A negative man, maybe. Element of truth, certainly. There are times that in our life comes where all seems to be vanity. All seems to be leading us nowhere. And then in our responsorial psalm, O Lord, you have been our refuge from generation to generation. You turn back men to dust and you say, return, O children of men. To your eyes are 1,000 years like yesterday, come and gone, or like a watch in the night. He's almost continuing on that idea of the uselessness of this life and the things that we try to achieve, that it seems as if we are just running, but we are running in circles. There's nothing that we achieve. There's nothing that we seem to get done. And then St. Paul, in our second reading to the Colossians, he says that, brethren, if you have been raised up with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Paul is saying, maybe you're right. Maybe everything that this world has to offer us is vanity. It's just something that comes and goes. It's something that keeps us preoccupied for a while, but it really doesn't take us very far. He says then, if you and I have been raised with Christ, it means that after baptism, when we have died and have been raised with him, you and I no longer focus now on things of this world. You and I no longer have our attention drawn to the things of this world. Our eyes are set up to where Christ is. It says, do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old man with the practices that have been put on. You are now putting on a new man who has been renewed in knowledge after the image of his very creator. we change. When we become Christian people, we become totally a new person. We have what is called a metanoia, a total turnabout. We turn in the opposite direction. That's what St. Paul speaks about in his letter to the Colossians. And then in our gospel reading, Luke chapter 12, verses 13 to 21, the setting is that one of the multitude said to Jesus, Lord, bid my brother divide his inheritance with me. And Jesus says, man, who made me a judge or a divider over you? Almost typical Jesus answering. But he goes on, he says, now he's speaking to all of them, he said, beware of all covetousness, for man does not consist in the abundance of his possession. Also continuing on what the responsorial psalm in the first reading is saying, that you and I, our greatness, our relevance, our power, everything that we can really be proud of is not based on our possessions. It's not about what we have. And then he gives that image of that man. He says there's this rich man who has everything, and then he builds this big barn to have all his treasures put there. And then he says, I will pull down my own barns and I will build bigger ones, and there I will store all my grains and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for you for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. And Jesus says he's such a fool because he's not going to survive that night. That night his soul is going to be required from him. And he says, whose possessions are those going to be? The soul that he's talking to is not going to enjoy those benefits. So you and I work for things that are not of this world, things that transcend, things that are beyond, things that Jesus Christ himself teaches about. He says that we must lay up treasure for ourselves in heaven. We must be rich towards God. And be clear about this. It's not to say that if God, because God does bless us with many gifts in this life, with many possessions, and that's a good thing. It makes life easier, it makes life bearable. But remember the first of the 10 commandments. I am the Lord your God, and you shall have no other God besides me. Sometimes that's what our possessions do. We cling onto them so much that they fail to allow us to continue to have a meaningful and a loving relationship with Christ. They become a barrier. We no longer see God because of our possessions. Yes, let's enjoy them. Let's use our possessions to the best of our ability. But let us also remember that they are not an end in themselves. They are meant to make us live easier, and as I said many times before, they are also meant to make the lives of our brothers and sisters easier as well. So that is what we're going to be looking at as this coming weekend, which is the 18th Sunday Ordinary Time. And I hope to see you guys both in person and online. So you take care of yourself, and bye-bye.